If you're lucky, you have a boat. But for many, there is no choice but to wade through the swollen waters. A few treasured possessions aboard an improvised raft. This a solar panel in a country where no one in government is in any doubt. Climate change is to blame. The monsoon season began in June. There have been 8 heavy rainfall bursts since then, double the usual amount. And more than 30 million people have been affected.
We are carrying our own belongings. Our house is submerged. How else are we supposed to save our belongings? You can see how we are carrying them in such a terrible situation. There's nobody from the government, nobody to help, nobody to even ask about us.
All 4 of the country's provinces have been hit by the unprecedented monsoon season. Nearly 300,000 homes destroyed by the heavy rains and resulting floodwaters. Roads and bridges have collapsed and communication lines severed, leaving swathes of the country cut off. People are now desperate for shelter and food, for any kind of help. Some have been airlifted to safety, with the military joining in the rescue efforts. Packages tossed from aircraft. Helicopters circling to find even a scrap of dry land to offload their aid. Nevertheless, a humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding. The government has appealed for international aid, blaming the horrors of climate change for the tragedy. With entire villages washed off the map in Pakistan, crops destroyed, and the threat of disease now looming. It's an emergency that lends new perspective to the economic crisis of richer nations. Well, earlier I spoke to Pakistan's Minister of Climate Change, Sherry Rehman. I began by asking her about the scale of the damage.
I'm having trouble, as is everybody else, wrapping their heads around how from north to south does a country get completely inundated this way. It's a merciless, unrelenting, torrential monsoon. Never seen anything like this before. Over 146 bridges have collapsed in the country. Over 3,000 kilometers of road cut off. We are slowly building, but it is not possible to even start rebuilding while people are out there waiting for rescue. So suddenly we're at this ground zero of a climate dystopia.
For anyone who's in any doubt about the climate emergency we're facing, what do you say to them?
Well, I mean, if there are any denialists left out there now, they need to just open their, phones, if anything. This is a dogged refusal to understand that this is nature not going back to normal. The world has to understand we've crossed a tipping point here.
Well, the pledges were made not many months ago by global leaders. Since then, we've had the emergency of the war in Ukraine. We've had economic catastrophe on our doorsteps. So do you have any sympathy with countries that say, let us fix our domestic problems, our economic problems first, and then we'll get to climate change?
Well, it's a tough one because countries have a right to their own kind of economic survival. But right now, countries that are facing climate emergencies like ours, I don't think anyone else is quite facing such a catastrophe, from heat waves to this kind of flooding shock. There are, of course, friends of Pakistan making important commitments and coming forth. The UN, of course, always does a heavy lift on the ground and needs assessment. And we're putting out a flash appeal, hopefully by Tuesday. But by and large, what will happen will be Band-Aid assistance. But the huge task of reconstruction, of resetting the national culture to climate goals and climate resilience, which is very costly.
But it is, as you say, it is costly dealing with climate change. So the woman who is expected to become the next Prime Minister here has pledged to remove the green levies from our bills to help people face a very difficult winter. What would you say to her to change her mind?
I would say to her, Prime Minister, look around you. Whatever, climate knows no boundaries. what goes around comes around. If you're going to pay for the greater good, you're going to foot the bill to bring other countries out of what they feel is a round of climate colonialism, then you're going to benefit in the even the medium and long term. I don't even say it's, if you want to get past the short term, the benefits will be very clear even in the medium term. And given what Western Europe went through or is going through this summer, I would think that some kind of, I mean, climate myopia won't help anybody.
There are political crises all over the world. There's a political crisis in your own country. Imran Khan's government collapsed. He's now been charged with terrorism. Is political turmoil preventing you from dealing with this terrible catastrophe unfolding now?
Well, it would help if Mr. Khan, who holds government in 2 provinces, one of which is under severe stress as we speak, would help us in saving lives. He's not doing that right now. He's very busy having public rallies on dry ground, which is in Punjab. But I think he needs to drop it for now and just focus.
He is holding an international telethon.
Well, first he said he was prevaricating, and then he said, I'll have the telethon only for the 2 provinces. Well, good enough. If he's only going to service his 2 provinces, that's fine. We will continue servicing them, and whatever helps people in need right now is crucial.
Isn't that the problem the world over, that you've got divisions in the US, in Europe, in the UK, on your own doorstep? There doesn't seem to be the kind of global leadership and the ability of political leaders to unite to address these terrible challenges we face.
Absolutely. I think this is the tragedy of this century now. We are facing threats like we've never before. The entire world is. And so it's time to step back, take a breath, and think about what kind of leadership we're providing.
Minister Sherry Rehman, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.